Well, good morning. It's great to see all of you here today. If you are new, if you're a guest with us this morning, maybe you were in for the game this weekend, decided to pop in on us. We're glad that you were here. And this is your first time. We'd love for you to take a minute. There's a card in the back of the chair in front of you. It just says First Step. We'd love for you to fill that out. And if there's some way that we can pray for you or serve you, let us know. And then you can either drop that in the bucket when it comes by later on the service, or you can take it out in the lobby, and someone with an orange lanyard on will be glad to take that from you and answer any questions that you may have. But so good to see all of you here today. It's Thanksgiving week. Holy cow, how did that happen? Man, that came quick. But I know that some of you will be traveling this week, and if that's you, we just pray that you have a safe trip, great time. Hope all of us will find specific ways to be thankful this week. I recommend starting today, pick one thing in your life that you are thankful for. One thing that God has placed in your life, and just focus on that. And then tomorrow, pick another one, then another one, all the way through Thanksgiving. And, and just be genuinely thankful throughout the day for that thing. Make it sticky. Put it on your car. Put it on your mirror. Put it somewhere you can be reminded of it. And just be genuinely grateful for what God has provided. Because hasn't He provided a lot in your life? Will you agree with me? Yes. I mean, He has provided literally everything that we have. So maybe this week can be all about that. So we're wrapping up this series called The Good News About Your Finances. Speaking of thankfulness and just being grateful for all that God has provided in our life, and including our finances and all of those kinds of things. But just trying to also talk about, what does it mean to have money and stuff in our life, especially as believers? What do we do with it? What is God calling us to do with it? How can we use it for God's glory and not get too wrapped up in it and have it become the center of our world? And the Bible has so much to say about our money and stuff. Jesus, 15% of everything He talked about money, because He knew that it would be something we would have to deal with in our life. And it could either be a great place of brokenness and pain, or it could be a place of great joy and generosity and hope. And so He wants us, with that latter one, He wants us to find joy in that good place in our life in the area of our finances. Last week we talked a little bit about margin and, that hard thing of trying to take our budget and squeeze that down, find ways to give up some stuff so that we can have margin in our life, and that in that margin God uses that space in our life to do a lot of good things. And so this morning we're going to talk a little bit as we land this series just about the idea, what does it look like just to be content, in our life. So our middle son, Becky and I's middle son, Wesley, is a homeowner. He lives down in Dothan now, graduated from Auburn last spring and got a job and lives down there. And so we've been helping him get moved in for the last couple of weeks. And, it's like, you kind of forget, we've owned a few homes along the way, but that first home, when your first stuff, the things you have to outfit home, he didn't have anything hardly coming into this deal. And so we've been helping him with that. Now, here's something you need to understand about Wesley. Wesley is a very simple person for the most part. First of all, he graduated from Auburn with Ag Econ. His job is with an agricultural chemical company. He's what you call an agri-intelligence specialist. So he spends all day out in the field. He's doing soil sampling and tissue sampling and working with farmers, to make sure that they're optimizing their crops. And so he does that pretty much all day. On the weekends, he's in a deer stand during deer season, and that's pretty much how it works for him. So all of this, what do we want in our house kind of stuff, he's like, mattress on the floor, food in the refrigerator. Good to go. What else do you want? What else do you need? I mean, for crying out loud. I'm not going to spend all day in this house anyway. And so I would say that I'm not going to say Wesley's a typical guy. Not every guy's the same. But he is a guy in the way that simplicity is a value for him just naturally. It's not like he has to work hard at it. Now, his girlfriend, Kennedy, and my wife, they have conspired to actually decorate his house with stuff other than a mattress and food in the refrigerator. So it's just been really fun to watch that happen. And sometimes they come home and even stick it on the wall, and Wesley looks at it and just goes, I mean, it's marginally feminine, I guess, But if it's even close, it's gone, it's out. And so there have been a few moments of compromise. That's gone okay. Mostly I'm over here in the corner like this, just tell me when you want to move something. When do you want to go get something? That's why I have the truck. That's my job. That's my role. I don't care if you like it, don't like it. Doesn't matter to me. I'm not in that game. Just point me in the direction we need to go. I'll sleep in the corner over there. It's like, it's all good. But in this whole process, it's just been interesting to watch this happen. And it kind of brings this question out to me. And just this whole idea of like, how much does it take to be happy? You know, I mean, for some people it's a certain amount, for some people it's another amount. I don't know what that is. But ultimately, especially as followers in Christ, what does it take of this world to genuinely be happy? What does it take for us to be content? Is there a dollar number? You know, is there a figure that would get us to happiness and contentment? You know, what does it look like for us to be content in this life? You've heard of this question before. You know, it's a big question. It's something that we all need to wrestle with. So I thought it'd be good this morning if we kind of worked through that. Like, what does the Bible have to say about that, and what does God expect of us? So that's what we're going to do. So I found this definition of contentment online on vocabulary.com, of all places. It was very interesting to me. Here's what it says. Contentment is the state of being happy and satisfied. And then it gives this example. On Thanksgiving, when you think about all that you are grateful for, hopefully you will feel a sense of contentment. Now, what I didn't put in this definition was after that it says, and if you're still not content, eat another turkey leg. But anyway, that's off the point. Contentment isn't an excited kind of happy. It's more like a peaceful ease of mind. It's being satisfied with what you have, whatever that is. Now, I guess it is kind of like Thanksgiving. Let me get back to that. Like, you know, this Thursday, you know, you get around with family or whatever you're going to do. You're going to eat whatever you're going to eat. Maybe turkey, ham. I don't know, some people grill steaks or eat barbecues. It's whatever your thing is. But anyway, you know, I guess that being content with that is like you're going to eat to the point where you're satisfied, right? Because that's what we do on Thanksgiving. We eat just a little, just enough. And then we're good. No, probably a lot of people are going to eat to the point of complete discomfort, and then we're going to get bloated, and then we're going to go want to take a nap because of the tryptophan effect in turkey, and then we're just going to lay there in pain and, you know, listen to the football game and wish we had gotten only to the point of content. Like, you know, 3 pieces of pie may have been a little much. Maybe just one could have done it with a little dab of whipped cream. That's okay, but that might have been satisfactory. All right. No, what we'll do is we'll go to that crazy place. So, so let's just keep that imagery going here. So, like, contentment in our life, what does that look like? That means having enough and being satisfied with it. Discontent is when we go way more than that. We put more stuff in our life than we truly need. That's when it gets complicated, right? That's when it gets complicated. So, really, to truly be content is to get to a place, well, it's to get what he says in this definition, a peaceful ease of mind. Or as the Eagles would say it, a peaceful, easy feeling. Yeah, that's what we really want. When it gets to that place, it's sort of a zone that we want to live in where we say, I'm good. Whether I'm here or whether I'm there or whether I'm in this circumstance or I'm in that circumstance, doesn't really matter because I'm in the zone. I'm in the zone, right? I'm in this ease of mind, this content place because of who God is and what he means to me. So, if you have your Bibles, I want to go to 1 Timothy 6 through 11, just to get us kind of started this morning, because Paul has a lot to say actually about the whole issue of contentment in our stuff and how we're supposed to deal with this. So 1 Timothy chapter 6, starting with verse 6, he says this, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money," remember we shared this verse a couple of weeks ago, "for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. But you, man of God, flee from all of this and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness." And so Paul is trying to guide Timothy. He's trying to help him out. Look, and as you live your life and as you're a minister of the gospel and all these things, just know that there are some traps out there that you need to be careful of. You need to pay attention. And he's like, listen, money in and of itself is neutral. We said that last week. It's neither good nor evil. It's what we do with it. It's what our heart does with it, right? And if our heart is generous and doesn't care about money and all that kind of stuff, then we won't get entangled in it. But as Paul said, but if you love money, if that's your thing, then it becomes a root of all kinds of evil. when your heart gets all tangled up in it and you decide you love it, that's when it becomes a root of all kinds of evil. And he goes on, he says, look, those who are eager and pursue money, they find nothing but ruin. You know? If that's your only goal, if that's where your happiness is going to be found, if that's where your joy is going to be found, if that's where contentment is going to be found, is having more, it's never going to work. Because many folks have wandered from the faith, as he says, and been pierced with many griefs because of that. And he's like, but listen, you don't need all that. You don't need to worry about that. You don't need to pursue that. Instead, pursue all of these other things like righteousness, a way of living, a right living, godliness, pursuing more Christ-likeness, faith, love, endurance, gentleness. See, those are things that are eternal. They will endure long after this world is gone. They're the things that will elevate you into that heavenly place. These are the things that will keep you from being pierced with many griefs. I mean, those are the things we really need and want in life, right? Pursue those, he says to young Timothy. And I like what he starts off with. Godliness, I put it like this, godliness plus contentment equals great gain. And I think it's important that you put godliness plus contentment, because you can find contentment on this earth, right? You know, like we're content, like on Christmas we get something we weren't expecting and we're so excited because we didn't know it was coming, and we have that thing that we really wanted. Oh man, it's so good. Give it about a month or 6. Is it still the same as it was that morning? Do we still love it? Are we still excited about it? No, because the newness wears off, right? Because eventually that thing will not be enough for us. We'll need another new. We'll need the next new iPhone. You know, we'll need the next new whatever it is that's going to come out. And that's kind of how that goes, because we're not satisfied. You know, we keep having this insatiable desire inside our heart because of what sin has done to us for more, for the next thing, trying to fill that place up. And the Bible says whoever loves money never has money enough. You get that? Whoever loves money never has money enough, because there's never enough money to truly satisfy. So, there are some principles, though, about this idea of contentment that I think are important for us to consider. Number 1, first of all, just be content with where God has placed you. Be content with where God has placed you. You've heard this verse, bloom where you're planted, in 2 Hesitations 3:5. That's not a verse. That's just a good saying. Bloom where you're planted. It's almost biblical, though. It's kind of like, listen, wherever God has you right now, be good with that. Unfortunately, in our culture, what we do is the grass is always greener on the other side. That's the one we love. That's not a verse either, by the way. But that's the thing. That where we're looking across the road, we're looking at our neighbor, we're looking at this other person, and we look at our grass and we go, it kind of looks brown from where I'm looking at it, but oh, their grass looks super green. I love their grass. I want to be there, not here. Now, here's the reality of that. Sometimes when you get there and you look down at their grass, or that, it's like it's not nearly as green as it looked like from over there, because usually green grass is an optical illusion sometimes when we look at it from a certain angle. Anyway, the grass is not always greener like we think it is. It's a lie of the enemy. It is a lie of the pursuit of this world that says if you'll have that, then you'll finally be happy and satisfied. Speaking of grass, last spring, early in the spring, we were having an ant bed raised up in my front yard, which I just can't have. And I ran over it with the mower, and then I stood next to it, not thinking, I didn't know it was there. And I got ants all over me, and I got bitten, so I was very angry. So I went and got whatever the granule stuff is that you have for ants, and I dumped all of it. We went nuclear on these ants, like I laid waste. Like, we're not having, no. So anyway, so I dump all this stuff on this ant bed. I come back later on that evening to be satisfied with what I have done to these ants, right? And I go and I look at the mound, and I'm like, you can see them. They're taking it, carrying it down into the mound. What was interesting was not just the fire ants, but apparently some neighboring ants had also come over to enjoy the feast, because there was a line of these other kinds of ants coming in and then going out carrying what they thought was a treasure, right? They thought, well, we've won the lottery here. We're ransacking our neighbor, and we're coming away with all this food. What a shock that was. Doink. You know, dropping like flies. Do ants drop like flies? I don't think so. Anyway, they're driving like dead ants. And so, it's like, I'm coming over, I'm thinking I get a treasure, we get it back, it turns out to be poison, that's a bad day. Same thing with us, though. Spiritually speaking, we keep looking for what other people have. We need to be very careful, because were we to get what they have, would it be good for us necessarily? Or could it be spiritual poison? Could it be something that once we take it into our life, we find ourselves ultimately then, as Paul said, pierced with many griefs? Whatever that person has, whatever they've got, whatever car, whatever house, whatever income, whatever career, whatever situation, that's theirs. If they're a believer, then God has them in that situation for whatever reason, and who knows what struggles are going on in their life. So don't try to borrow trouble. Focus on where you are, what God has placed in your life, your situation and circumstances. While they may not be ideal, be thankful, because who knows what God is doing in you. That is a treasure right where you are. There's just something good about learning this place of contentment in our life. You see, I think the unhappiness comes from that. You've heard that cliche that everybody's born with a hole in their heart. Well, that's true. Sin has done that. It has broken a place in us. It has left this open space. And so many people, and maybe you've done it, and I've done it at times, we try to throw stuff in there to fill it up because we just have a need. There's like this need in us for something. And sin has created that longing that is different than God. We know what it is. It's God that we need in that space. He's the only one that's ever going to fill it up. But for whatever reason, man, the enemy's just done a number on us. We just keep throwing stuff in there. Just dumping it in the hole, it's like, and it just goes away. It's like, where'd it go? And I'm still not satisfied. It's like drinking salt water and expecting to not be thirsty after that. I mean, it's like, why do we keep doing this to ourselves? But that's how it works. That's how the enemy works. But God doesn't want that. He's like, man, fill yourself with me. I've got what you need. 1 Corinthians 7:17. It says, nevertheless, each person should live as a believer in whatever situation the Lord has assigned to them, just as God has called them. Live in the circumstances, live in your situation. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to change, and it probably will, but for right now, can we be content with where God has us and learn whatever we're supposed to learn, whatever our circumstances? Paul later in Philippians 4 says this, he says, I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. Here you go. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. There you go. I cannot do this on my own. It will never work. Thank you, Charles, for that rousing applause. Because it's so true. It's like driving a nail, driving a stake right here and saying, this is the truth. This is where our joy should be found. I can do all this through Christ who gives me strength. That's how I will do it. That's how I will learn to be content where God has placed me. Second thing is, find contentment through generosity. Some of the most content people that I have seen in this world are also the most generous. There are people who have just found joy and happiness in that they don't have to hold on to it to be happy. That they're happier actually finding ways to bless other people and to bless God with it. So I kind of think, when I think of generosity, I think of it in terms of two things. Number one is just a generous lifestyle. Like, it doesn't always have to be about money and stuff, right, when it comes to generosity. It could also be about your time. It could be about your attitude toward others. It could be about those kind words that you're going to say when you're stuck in line and that person at the store is taking forever to check everybody out. It's about blessing them, right? Not getting so wrapped up in how you're not getting anywhere. Rusty? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm preaching to myself. But anyway, it's about a generous way of living. It's about being kind to people. It's even being kind to people who don't deserve to have kindness heaped on them in a moment. Maybe this week it's going to be about your family and about that uncle who's going to show up, or that sister-in-law, or that brother-in-law, or that mother-in-law. I don't know. So somebody's going to show up, and you're going to have to really pray yourself into Thursday. Okay, we'll do that. Be generous and see what happens. If being frustrated and angry didn't work last year, we'll try something new this year. All right? John Wesley, founder of Methodism, said this: do all the good you can by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can. Do all the good you can. In the name of Jesus, do all the good you can. Hebrews 13:16, just like it. And do not forget to do good and to share with others, for with such sacrifices God is pleased. And I think there is just so much satisfaction that comes in serving Jesus by being kind and good to people around us in all the ways that we possibly can, with whatever means that God has entrusted to us. How can I do that? How can I be kind to someone around me? And then this other thing is generosity with our money and possessions, that we have stuff. Whether we're rich or we're poor or we're somewhere in between, we have things. We have way to be generous toward God and toward others. And let me tell you something. I came across a book. Actually, Jill Harris, our children's director, posted a devotional that was based on a book. And then I found my way to this book, and I'm like, everybody should read it. Everybody in the world, but especially Christians. It's a book called A Generous Life. It's written by Bill High and David Green. Do you know who David Green is? It's like a very common name, but David Green is the founder and CEO of Hobby Lobby. Now, if you don't know what Hobby Lobby is, Wesley Hudson, no, I'm just kidding. It's the largest privately owned arts and crafts retailer in the world. It employs over 33,000 people and operates 800 stores in 47 states and grosses more than $5 billion a year. That's arts and crafts. How do you do that? But anyway, that's a whole lot. And I'm thinking, now, what does a guy like this, a billionaire, have to say about money and possessions and generosity? What does he have to say except that, first of all, we can start with the fact that David Green is a believer in Jesus Christ. And that has informed everything about his life. You should read this book, A Generous Life. To hear him talk about his life and his ideas and his theology of money and where God is and how he's passed this on to his children, it is really good. I mean, it is inspiring. I will say this. Anyway, here's like a whole bunch of quotes out of his book. It was really good. He said, I've lived a truly wonderful life, but the blessings I've experienced do not rest in the possessions or accomplishments I've accumulated. Instead, my greatest blessings are those things that cannot be measured. I heard it once said, not all things that count can be counted. That's a good one. He goes on and says, I believe that God has placed us on this earth to work, to earn, and to care for those he has entrusted to us. Yet I also believe that we are put on this earth to give, to devote ourselves to a radical brand of generosity that changes lives and leaves a legacy. Generosity can start ever so small, but eventually have massive impact for God's kingdom. I think sometimes we think, oh, well, it has to be a big act of generosity to matter. No, it doesn't. It can start small because it starts in here with whether we're going to do it or not. Then this. He said, I never dreamed that my little business started inside of my garage in 1972. How many businesses that are amazing started in somebody's garage? It kind of makes you think, maybe I should build a garage, Anyway. Well, we started this in our living room, I guess. So anyway, one day, where was I? Started inside of my garage in 1972, would one day employ 35,000 employees, process billions of dollars in annual sales. Nor did I dream that our business would one day, here we go, be able to give away 50% of its profits, providing fuel for the gospel around the world. Now, how many billionaires can say that? Not giving away 50% of my profits to a whole lot of charitable organizations, a whole lot of things. To fuel the gospel spread around the world, specific and focused, I believe David Green is. And here's the thing. I think he has found the secret of contentment that Paul talks about. And it certainly isn't in getting more. It's in giving more. I mean, David Green has discovered, I am on this earth, yes, to make a lot of money, but that's only to fuel the gospel. My ultimate purpose is to do that. Now, again, let's not get stuck in the fact he's a billionaire and say, well, I can't fuel the gospel. Everybody can do that. Because that all started in his heart, tuned specifically by his parents with the faith that he had. Now, parents, that's another thing with your kids. Man, tune their heart toward generosity, and they'll live a happy life, right? We want to do that well. So I believe that's what happened in him. And then I go all the way back again to Jesus' very familiar words that I preach over and over again from Matthew 6, 31 through 33, when he said, so do not worry about your life, what you will eat and what you will drink and what you will wear, for the pagans run after all these things. And your heavenly Father knows that you need them, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you as well. Over and over and over again is this truth proclaimed. and for all generations, because everybody will need to hear it from now until till Jesus returns again one day. Seek first the kingdom, and it's all good. Don't seek first the kingdom, and then it's all up to you. Good luck. See how that goes for you. All right, then this last thing. Contentment is the result of what we just talked about, a godly pursuit. You know, Paul trying to help young Timothy in his life before he gets going, hey, but you, man of God, Timothy, flee from all this stuff and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness, and that will outlast everything. And you won't get caught up in all the rest of it. There's a quote that C.S. Lewis gives, has lived in my mind for so long. He said, aim at heaven and you'll get earth thrown in. Aim at earth and you'll get neither. If you aim for earth at the end of your life, you won't get earth or heaven. Because you didn't bring it into this world and you're not going to take it out. But you know what? If you'll aim at heaven, you'll get everything you could ever want or need. And you'll be very thankful at the end of your life that you did. So here's the thing. Put Christ first and you will have peace. You will have contentment. It is a promise. Put him first. And this week, as you're going about your Thanksgiving stuff, put Jesus first. And be thankful for who he is and what he means to you. Amen? Amen. Let's pray.